And I think we've got, there you go, Jordan's picture in one of my hearings at Homeland Security. And they were crucial. Jordan was crucial in passing right to try because he told a story and he created a level of sympathy. But during that process in I guess it was September 2017, there was literally a FDA advisory committee meeting attended by a couple of the moms here standing behind me, where the FDA evaluated drug Adalurin, and they listened to 50 or 60 Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients and their families begging, I mean literally begging, to allow this drug to be approved. And somehow, I mean, it boggles any sensibility. Somehow 10 out of the 11 of those people on that advisory panel said no. So I wrote a letter to Janet Woodcock. I mean, right now Adalurin has been available under compassionate use, but we're here today because they will no longer have access to it. I mean, how does this make sense? You've got people here who have benefited from it, and you'll hear their stories. How does it make sense? So let me move on to a hearing we held 2 weeks ago in the Aging Committee with Chairman Rick Scott, and it was on rare diseases. So again, I was kind of involved with ALS community, with the Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but other rare diseases is kind of like that's somebody else's issue until that hearing. And I read the testimony before the hearing, and I came in, I said literally, I was enraged by it. Two particular diseases, ataxia, had a Harvard doctor, Dr. Schmamann, and he's talking about a drug, troriluzole. It's impossible to say these drugs. But this drug, again, he's treating patients, a doctor from Harvard, a neurologist from Harvard. It slows the progression of the disease by 50 to 70%. And rather than allow these patients access, the right to try it, the right to use it, the FDA, for some unknown reason, and one of the reviewers literally said to this neurologist from Harvard, "Why should we listen to you?" "Oh, I don't know, because I'm a doctor from Harvard, I'm treating these patients, I'm getting good results." And oh, by the way, Congress has given you, year after year, all the flexibility to show some compassion and err on the side of what the patients want. The other, so that was Dr. Schmalman. Then we had Dr. O'Neill, whose daughter suffers from Sanfilippo syndrome, who fortunately got a gene therapy, and she's outlived the other girl whom they met early on in the course of her disease, who's no longer with us. So she's now 16 years old. So here's another gene therapy that they got their complete response letter. I mean, that's bureaucratese for no, niet, okay? This can't go on. I spoke with Dr. McCary. He's saying all the right things, but his agency continues to say no. And he seemed to be quite proud of the fact that he has not overruled his career researchers. And I suggested to him, well, he better start. There's an approval process that you have to go through if you're going to administer, for example, a COVID injection to billions of people. I'm particularly careful with that approval. Or millions, or hundreds of thousands, or thousands, or hundreds, or tens. They're completely different. And again, it all relates and all boils down to right to try. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite up Diana Rodriguez and her son Benjamin to tell Diane's story. Diana?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here today as a parent of a remarkable 13-year-old boy named Benjamin. That's his picture there. Benjamin was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy in November of 2013, just a few months after his first birthday. Duchenne is a devastating genetic disease that causes progressive muscle deterioration. Over time, boys lose the ability to walk, their heart and lungs weaken, and their lives are cut far too short. Soon after Benjamin's diagnosis, we learned that his specific mutation, a stop codon nonsense mutation, made him a candidate for Adalurin. But when Benjamin was diagnosed, clinical trials were only enrolling boys over the age of 7. So we waited and hoped for approval. And a year later it came, but not here for us in the U.S. Adalurin is known outside of of the U.S. as Translarna and has been conditionally approved in several countries starting in 2014 and most recently in 2020 in Russia. Eventually, Benjamin was able to enroll in a safety study for younger boys, and 11 days before his 4th birthday, he received his first dose of Atalorin. Within 6 weeks, we saw changes. His strength improved, his mobility improved, and today, nearly 10 years later, he is still walking at 13 years old. Doctors consistently tell us how remarkable his condition is compared to other boys his age with Duchenne. Like most middle schoolers, his favorite time of day is PE class, which he attends 5 days a week for 1 hour at a time. Nothing makes him happier than playing basketball in our driveway and throwing a football with his brother and dad. Moments like these matter. And moments like these should not be taken away when a safe treatment already exists. However, access to his medication has now been halted in the U.S. Recently, the FDA and the manufacturer could not come to agreement on the clinical trial data, and the new drug application was ultimately withdrawn. As a result, families like ours have suddenly lost an access to a treatment that has been safe, helping our boys and girls for years. For our families, this decision has immediate consequences. Without Atalorin, his independence that Benjamin has today will slowly disappear. We're asking the FDA to ensure that patient voices and real-world experiences are meaningfully included in their review process. We are living proof that these treatments can do and what they can do, and they do work. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And next we'll hear from Sherry Gunvalson. Sherry.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to tell you about our son Jacob. Jacob is 34 and a half, and he's been on Atalorin almost 20 years. It has slowed his progression greatly. We go to Cincinnati Children's Hospital where they have 800 Duchenne patients, and Jacob is the oldest. This drug has enabled him to graduate from college, become a social worker, work for the governor of Minnesota, work as a high school social worker, and he's very much loved. He's got just a unique personality. He's seen it all. I once asked him, I said, Jacob, why don't you complain like your siblings? He says, Mom, I'm not going to waste one more second on this disease than I have to. You see, he has physical therapy. He did not get on Atalorin when he was young, so he was already in a wheelchair when he got on it. But even then, it's enabled him to breathe on his own and do so many more things. This drug enables boys to walk 3.5 years longer than the controls. It enables them to breathe longer without support by 1.8 years. And my son's 34. He doesn't have time to wait for another clinical trial. There are no drugs in the pipeline to work on a premature stop codon, which he has. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is very rare, but of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, only 10% have a premature stop codon. So we are asking the FDA to provide the flexibility for our drug that's given to other drugs with Duchenne, like Elivis. And this drug is safe. It's been in hundreds of boys for up to 20 years. There's no question this drug works. Without it, Jacob will decline and die. They stopped access to the drug. Our clinical trial spot is not willing to do compassionate use, and there was a little bit left. But all these boys are going to lose this drug in the next few months, and we've already lost it. There's very different criteria at Cedar versus CBER, and that's what we're asking for, a fair review. with the same flexibility that other divisions are giving their Duchenne drugs. By denying this drug, the FDA is causing boys to die needlessly. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Final presenter will be Ben Baumgartner. And Ben's here with his mom and dad. And Ben, why don't you step out the microphone here?
My name is Ben. I am 15 years old and have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. When I was 8 years old, I started on a clinical trial for a drug called Adalurin to treat my Duchenne muscular dystrophy. For 6 years, my doctor said it slowed my progression. I was able to walk until I was 5.5, and my heart and lungs are still very healthy. Most boys with Duchenne stop walking by 12. Even though Adalurin was helping me, we decided to go on a gene therapy treatment about 1.5 years ago and hoped that both drugs would help me even more. I needed to pause my Adalurin to do my infusion, but the drug company said I would be able to take it again after about 6 months. However, 6 months after my infusion, the drug company said I would not be able to take Adalurin anymore. Since stopping Adalurin, my condition has declined. I have used a wheelchair for the past 7 years, but this past Christmas Eve, I completely lost the ability to walk. I now need my parents to transfer me between my bed, wheelchair, toilet, and shower chair with the help of a lift. Right now, I still have strength in my arms to type on a computer, use my phone, feed myself, handle my service dog, and hug my parents. These are all things Duchenne will eventually take from me. If I could start taking Adalurin again, I may be able to live longer and keep doing these things that I appreciate. Anything you can do to help me access this life-changing drug would be great.
Well, thank you, Ben. I just want to read 2 additional stories here. One from a Duchenne patient, John Piacentino, and he writes, Adalurin has helped me and many others with Duchenne nonsense mutations to maintain independence and quality of life well into adulthood, far beyond typical expectations. I'm now 32 years old. I lost ambulation at 22, began nighttime ventilation at age 30, and regained baseline respiratory function within 1 month after a 25-day ICU stay. I can independently type on the computer and feed myself. I have personally benefited from Adalurin for 20 years and know dozens of families whose sons have experienced similar stability and resilience. This drug is safe, with no deaths reported in 2 decades on trial. Yet, because of rare disease studies have small cohorts, traditional statistical thresholds can overlook meaningful improvements. Without FDA approval or continued compassionate use, patients will face rapid decline, loss of essential abilities, and preventable suffering and death. I urge the FDA to recognize the proven, sustained benefits of Adalurin and act swiftly to secure ongoing access for all who need it. Earlier yesterday, we just received a text from one of my constituents. Her name is Amy Messagian. And Amy enrolled in a clinical trial in 2017 for investigational drug troriluzole for ataxia. And she writes, according to her family, the treatment has significantly slowed the progression of her disease and delayed the steep decline typically seen with ataxia. Nearly a decade later, due to troriluzole, these drugs are impossible to pronounce, Amy remains able to walk without a wheelchair, climb stairs, continue working, speak clearly, and live independently. She has been taking therapy for almost 9 years under medical supervision without side effects. Her experience is an example of real-world evidence that the treatment may be slowing the progression of this devastating disease. Now again, this was the disease we highlighted in the hearing a couple weeks ago, then again, once again, the FDA is going to say no. It's going to take this drug away from patients. It's also important to understand, and I think it's pointed out, Adalurin is available in Russia and other countries in Europe and South America. I mean, are we going to force Americans to try and access drugs? I'm sure it's not going to be a particularly easy process. So again, I appreciate everybody coming here. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure the people standing behind me will answer any of your questions as well. Right there.
Johnnson from Politico. Have you engaged President Trump on these specific issues at all? I understand you did last year with respect to what happened with the Lebanon back then. And can you get into other specifics of what you're planning to do to address this issue with the FDA?
So one of the issues we have, and I learned this last week, that apparently there's a blacklist within the FDA of companies who make too much noise. And so I'm very cautious of going over people's heads to achieve a result that we have to achieve. So I'm trying to go through the process here. You know, obviously holding a press conference here, we're going to put pressure on the FDA. Now, Dr. Prasad is gone. You know, that happened before, but they hired him back, but now he's gone. I don't know whether he was the problem. Again, Dr. McCary is saying all the right things. It's people underneath him. It's the career researchers that apparently just have a habit of saying no. But again, I want to give them the opportunity to say yes, to right these wrongs, to reverse these terrible decisions, completely lacking any compassion whatsoever. So we'll do that first, but eventually, I'm happy to talk to President Trump, because last time when they denied, or they're going to disapprove of a drug, I did contact President Trump, and this is for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and I sent him a photo of Jordan McGlynn, who was at the signing ceremony for Right to Try. And that immediately got reversed, and instead of removing that drug, it put a black box warning on it, which is the appropriate thing to do. And these people, you know, they have brains. You know, they know what the progression of the disease is. They're willing to take the risk. They have informed consent. And that's really what we're asking the FDA to do, is use the laws Congress has passed, use the flexibility, but listen to the patients, listen to their doctors, and let them, in the end, have the right to choose, the right to try. Sir.
John Wilkerson. When you speak to FDA, did they say that Prasad's exit was supposed to help?
I have not spoken to him about Prasad's exit. You just have to assume. Any questions for our families here?
I have a question. Were you just cut off from the drug? How did you find out that the drug was no longer available? And what was that like?
Sure, you want to?
What was that like finding that out, or having it all of a sudden not be available?
Well, the drug company has had this drug in clinical trial for 20 years. And the FDA has made disappointing decisions before, and it's devastating, because like from my son, who's 34 and a half, there is nothing else. He's going to decline and die. So it's horrible.
So how did you find out that it was
We were informed by our clinical coordinator at the University of Minnesota.
and then there's basically
Nothing.
there's nothing to do after
No,
that?
no. That's why we're here, to bring awareness, because this drug is very safe, as opposed to the gene therapy drug that I was mentioning that they approved with poor endpoints. 2 boys died in clinical trial of that drug, and 2 boys have died since. So, you know, gene therapy, once it's in the body, it's in there forever. And you don't know what's going to happen, but families deserve that choice. Our drug has been in clinical trial with hundreds of boys, and it's proven very safe. It's a powder. So even if a patient, you know, develops some problems, you just stop taking it.
So let me add, the company, they didn't get a complete approval letter. The denial. They didn't get the complete denial. So they pulled the drug application so they wouldn't have it be denied. But again, they've been making it available for free for 20 years. So this isn't exactly a moneymaker. A lot of these companies will develop these drugs as part of their portfolio. They can learn from these drugs to address drugs for diseases that, there's more of a market potential. But that's what makes no sense about the FDA just saying no all the time. It makes no sense whatsoever. So, any other, sir?
Yeah, I know you said that the FDA basically just said no. Did they give you any reasoning as to why they were not approving some of these drugs that you're talking about? Any, general
Again, in this case, they just indicated to the company that they were going to get a denial letter. A complete response letter is the bureaucratic ease for that. In other cases, like on ataxia and on Sanfilippo syndrome, those complete response letters, they complained about, there were cracks in the floor. I mean, there are some other bigger issues, but a lot of it's very nitpicky things. It's almost like they're looking for reasons to say no. What I'm going to do is, chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, we're going to begin an investigation. We're going to start with getting all those complete response letters. We're going to find exactly what issues the FDA listed for their no's. In one of those cases, the complete response letter admitted they didn't look at like 4 or 5 of the submissions of information the companies had provided. They just said no. So I can't explain it. I'm going to learn a whole lot more about it over the next couple months, and then once we get these complete response letters, then I will start inquiries into the FDA. Explain yourself. And hopefully they'll cooperate, hopefully explain themselves, hopefully they will reverse some of these decisions, which, again, you look on this particular drug, this Adalurin, 20 years, it's helped people. They know it's helped people. It hasn't, no reported harmful effects. Why in the world, when it's available in Russia and other places of the world, why would we deny access to these people who are just begging for it? I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. So that's what I need to get to the bottom of.
As part of your organization, are you also going to look for the blacklist? Is there, the list that's out there for the?
Oh, I would love to. Even with, Bobby Kennedy, head of HHS, promising and wanting to create radical transparency. The problem is very difficult to control these agencies. And, if there actually was a blacklist, you think they'd give that up to me? The people would protect that. But again, when you hear that exists, it doesn't surprise anybody, right? And part of the devastating impact of these no's is that these companies, that again, doing this for free, it is going to really reduce the incentive for these companies to address rare diseases. They'll never make a profit on this. They'll never make a profit on it. The genetic therapy for the Sanfilippo, I had the CEO of the company, they took it over from another company whose board of directors said you have to stop producing it, it costs too much money. It's like a couple $1 million of treatment. But they're willing to foot that bill because they've got a larger portfolio. But if there's no hope of doing all this development, then it doesn't even be used as compassionate use, why would you keep doing it? So we will dramatically decrease the number of new drugs available to be tried by people with rare diseases. One thing, my daughter was born with transverse great arteries. So she had to have surgery at the age of 8 months, open heart surgery, rebaffle the upper chamber of her heart. Without getting in detail, the reason I point that out is the moment I realized that the term medical practice wasn't a noun. It's not a clinic. It's a verb. It's medical practice. That's how we advance medicine. We practice on it. And particularly with rare diseases where there's no treatment, there's no drug available, let those families with fully informed consent, let them make the decision, not some faceless bureaucrat that just looking for reasons to say no. It makes no sense. Any other questions? Well, again, thank you for coming. Please let the people who read your publications know about this so that we get pressure on the FDA and so they can reverse these horrible decisions. Thank you. Thank all of you.